All right, Between Two Bridges, episode 75 here at Between Two Bridges studio. So this episode's going to look a little different.
Yeah, it's a little different today. We're going to do things a little differently.
Yeah. It's
a busy time. It's a weird time. But we've never missed an episode.
Right.
And we didn't want to start now.
Yeah, I'm sitting here and the Masters is being played right now, so that's commitment, dedication.
That's dedication.
So I recorded it.
Yeah,
so.
And I'm up to my eyeballs in tax returns. To give our viewers, our subscribers, a little idea of what happened this week and what we're doing and why things are a little different this week. Obviously, we're at the tail end of tax season. And you're listening to this right after tax season, but we record it a week ahead of time. But I had a death in my family. My mother-in-law passed away on April 4th. And we've been going through that. She was sick for a while. She was diagnosed with lung cancer and has been going through treatment for almost exactly a year. And it's been a very, very hard year for my family. And over the last few months, things have gone downhill really quickly. So she passed away on the 4th. This past week, we had the funeral. So I missed 2 days of work for the funeral. Obviously needed to be there for the family and take care of that. Being that it's tax season, that was a challenge. Also, we are a family business. So most 60% of my office was also at the funeral for at least some of it. We kind of took shifts. I was there for the whole thing, but everybody else kind of took shifts. Those employees that are not members of the family, they covered and did an amazing job. And I would say 99% of my clients were tremendous, extremely understanding of the situation. And obviously it's not something that we can control. It's just a really hard time of year for that to happen. Not that any time of year is the time that you want this to happen, but it's been really challenging. So challenging so that I actually spent the night at the office last night. Just took a nap and pulled an all-nighter just to try to get caught up with taxes. So that's the frame of mind that I'm in right now. But which obviously was going to drastically limit the amount of time that we had to film a podcast. We actually had a guest scheduled. We had to cancel on Wednesday because of the funeral. So that was a bummer, but we're going to get him back on. But
it actually worked out because he needed to cancel too. So
good.
So it was a mutual cancellation.
Well, that's good. So I don't feel quite so bad. But it's one thing that, in all the chaos of dealing with this past week on how to manage the business. You can't just in the middle of tax season shut and lock the doors and say, gone to funeral, be back later. Trying to orchestrate schedules as far as that goes, making sure there's coverage, communicating to clients that I'll be out and, all that kind of thing. We did have to figure out this whole podcast thing because it did interfere with our typical recording night. One thing that, I listen to a lot of podcasts. I know you do too. One thing that drives me crazy is whenever one of my favorite podcasts just doesn't post an episode that week. And I'm always like, well, what the hell?
It becomes like part of your routine.
Yeah. I'll never know what the hell's going on. So I didn't want to do that. I didn't think that was the right way to do it. We've never missed a week.
Right.
I didn't want to start now. So I tried to figure out how to do this so that it was not going to necessarily interrupt our flow, but also didn't want to just blindly repost a random episode.
Right, and leave people in the dark is never good. You know, you're talking about communicating with your clients, and communications is the biggest one. I think about like your situation. We talk a lot about our wives on here and how they like handle all the mess and everything. And unfortunately, what you're going through now is like, there's not an option. You have to be there for her. You know, she's not gonna, she would never forgive you. You know what I mean? Like,
no, and on top of that, I mean, I've been with my wife we've been together for 21 years. So
and Joyce has been like your rock.
Right. Joyce has been a huge part of our family. You know, my kids are 6 and 10, so, you know, they're well aware of what's going on. They're very close. They were very close to her. And, you know, 21 years, it wasn't just my mother-in-law. It wasn't just my wife's mom.
Right.
She was a big part of my life too. So
you're like one of the small percentages of guys that have what seemed to be like a good relationship with their mother-in-law. So
yeah, no, she liked me a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Do you ever see those T-shirts and stuff that are on Facebook advertised and stuff that says I'm my mother-in-law's favorite child? Yeah. I always thought about getting one of those for her. Yeah, I mean, yeah, this was really hard. She was definitely she was a glue that kept, she was a major factor. I don't know how to say this. She was a glue that kept that side of the family together, and it's going to take some effort and make sure that we keep the traditions going. And it's,
because you see that a lot, the matriarch, you know, when they pass.
She was definitely the matriarch of the family, and it's gonna take effort to make sure that traditions live on, and trying to figure out the new normal. Yeah, and it's gonna be challenging.
Well, I think I talked to you a little bit on Friday, and I said, you know, it's never gonna go away for her, your wife, that is, because like my grandma was like 75 and cooking Christmas cookies, and she just started crying because she missed her mom. Yeah, and I'm like, huh. And I see that with my kids. Like, we're at the wedding, and like my kids are just hovering around their mom, like they just, we have a different like relationship with being the dad, you know. So moms are.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough, and watching her suffer over the last several months has been really, really hard. And now that part of this is over, and we got through the funeral, which was challenging. One of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life was tell my kids. Yeah. And we got through that. My kids are handling it better than I ever thought they could.
Kids are tough, man.
They are. They're resilient. And I have my 6-year-old that at times is helping console my wife. And just, kids will blow your mind. Yeah. But, you know, there's going to be a lot of times in the next months and years where you're just going to think of something or hear something or feel something, and it's just gonna suck. Yeah. But
and the good thing is you'll think about the memories and the good times. Like, you won't, in the distance, you'll forget about her being sick, and you'll start to think about all the happy times and the funny times, and you know. But loss is never easy.
Yeah. So in trying to figure out what to do for today's episode, I wanted to try to come up with something that was going to kind of have a little bit more meaning and have something that wasn't just throwing some random episode up. And one of our first episodes was somebody that throughout this last week was a huge part of the last week for us. And it's Sean Truby. Right. So we had Truby Funeral Home handle the funeral service for Joyce. And I couldn't imagine trying to go through what we went through without them. It helps that I've known Shay and Sean since we were in grade school.
Right.
It helps that our kids go to school together. So they're not just the local funeral home. They're family.
Right.
But that's exactly what it felt like. We were treated like family. And the level of professionalism and the care and comfort that came with it is unmatched. And I'm really glad that we decided to do what we're doing today, because Sean and Shay, Shay's not part of this episode, but Shay was a huge part of this week, really, really, really helped make a really shitty situation so much easier on my family that I can't say enough about them and about their business. But in the episode, Sean not only talks about his business, but he talks a lot about the loss of his dad.
Yeah.
And I thought that this was a really good episode to relive this week.
Yeah, and to recycle it, because I mean, what we try to do here too is like we try to like promote businesses, you know, and their track record speaks for itself. But like, if you are ever in a situation, anybody listen to this, and you're local to Oakmont or Verona, and you have a loss in your family, just pick up the phone and call them, and they'll take it, and they will.
Dude, they handled everything.
Yeah.
I mean, it was as simple as hospice reached out to the funeral home and they took it from there. They handled, obviously, picking her up. They handled publishing the obituary. They handled setting up the service at the church, the cemetery. They handled transportation. They handled everything.
Yeah.
To the point where we just showed up.
Right.
And but in addition to that, I mean, it was just, they're so comforting. And it was like, you know, they live in this world every day. And it's such a dark world that most people don't live in often, thankfully.
Right.
And it almost felt like I had a friend that was holding my hand and guiding me through this fucked up time of my life. And it was like, here, like, I'm going to get you through this.
Right.
I know how to do this. I do it every day. This is going to hurt.
Yeah. Just trust me.
But I'm going to trust me. I'm going to get you through this.
Right.
And that's the way it felt from the beginning, all the way from when I reached out to them at the very beginning, all the way until after the wake. I invited them to have lunch with us at the lot after the cemetery, and they had lunch with us. And I mean, just absolutely tremendous. It was fantastic. So to be able to not only promote their business, but to hear Sean's story again about, you know, dealing with grieving his father's death and taking over the business after his father's death, trying to live up to his father's expectations.
Yeah.
I think this is like the perfect episode for where my head's at.
Yeah. Thought it was a good idea. So.
Yeah.
But
I also didn't want to just replay it. Right. So we talked about doing like a little intro. So instead of just replaying an old episode, we wanted to have a little intro here, just a short little, you know, this is why we're doing this.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
But that's the story. And also, you know, it's going to be nice too, is it was literally our second episode. So also it's the old studio.
Yeah.
The old mics, the probably the old cameras. Like it's old. Yeah. So we were probably awkward and didn't know what the hell we were doing. So bear with us. Yeah. But there's probably a lot of our listeners that have never even seen this episode because it's been so long.
Right.
But
and everybody will be real excited to hear our Destiny's voice again.
Our Destiny's going to make a comeback. We should make sure that he's
privy to this.
He knows he's about to come back.
So,
but enjoy it.
Yeah.
We'll get through this together.
Yeah. So, all right, guys. Thanks, guys. Bring that back for that.
For one more week.
For the one more week there.
You're listening to Between Two Bridges, a business-to-business podcast. With your hosts, Joe Ferranti and Jerry Kenna. Produced by Nathan Kenna. Interviewing entrepreneurs, business operators, and investors. This episode of Between Two Bridges is brought to you by Duro Cleaners. Luxury laundry care conveniently delivered to your door. Visit DuroCleaners.com because life's better without laundry.
We are here with another episode of Between Two Bridges, B2B. I'm your host, Anthony R. Destiny. To my left is the cleanest man in Pittsburgh. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Joe Ferranti, owner of Duro Cleaners, and proud member of this team here.
Nice. And to his left, the man with the plan.
Jerry Kenna. I own Landmark Business Solutions, a couple other small businesses around the finance world, finance and real estate.
And our esteemed guest this evening, a graduate from Riverview High School, 2005. Also graduated from Point Park in 2009, has a mortuary science degree, served as class president. Look at that. Licensed funeral director of 2011, Sean Russell Truby. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, boys.
Absolutely. So welcome. Obviously a well-known last name and figure in Oakmont. So what was it like growing up as a Truby? Kind of start there.
You definitely didn't get in trouble. That's for sure.
Can you explain?
It was, now looking back on it, it was obviously great with my last name. My parents were remarkable people. Loved Oakmont, loved growing up here. Now that my kids are at 10th Street, it's, I think one of the greatest places on earth for a small town USA to grow up in.
Convince someone to marry you? You have 2 kids, it looks like. How'd that happen?
It was a negotiation.
Okay, they usually are.
Was it hostile?
So I was finishing up mortuary school. My wife was at Duquesne. We were out having some Mountain Dews one night.
Okay.
And actually I met her roommate first. We were kind of chatting and just hit it off. We ended up in the same place 3 nights in a row in the city, and then asked her out on the 4th night, and we've been together ever since.
Nice.
Yeah.
What was your first job? Was it with the company? Was it
my first job?
Typical
Oakmont boy was caddying at the country club, which I think was $50 a bag at the time. John Migley was the caddy master. Walked up there. Lived at the funeral home at the time, walked up, walked back, walked the 18 holes, took your $50 and went home. That was probably my only gig before helping out my dad.
Did you loop for long back then, or was it just
I didn't, because he never put me out.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. A lot of guys just didn't loop for long because you go up and you're there at 8 a.m. and then you don't get out until
Oakmont has, these regulars that are caddies by trade, and they get out all the time. And so, yeah, I got put out a couple of times, and after a while I was like, I actually want to golf. I don't want to caddy.
That's hard.
Is there a trade for caddying, or like, is it just you got to know the right guy? Is it a whole? Is there a whole school to it? I mean, obviously there's good ones and bad ones.
So a lot of times what will happen is guys that come to Oakmont multiple times a year, they'll like have a guy they call to get him on the bag. So therefore a guy like Sean, when he's trying to get out as a young kid, they're not coming in from, Arizona to golf to have Sean Truby on the bag. They have a guy, and a lot of times
Little did they know they would.
a lot of times what they'll do is the caddy will then work for him the whole week they're here, the weekend they're here, drive him around, pick him up, show for him. Yeah.
The whole 9 yards.
Oh yeah. A lot of those guys go to Seminole from Oakmont in the wintertime. So they caddy year round. So I think you took a better approach here. Not against any of those guys, but I think going to work for your dad wasn't a bad idea.
Yeah.
So what was your dad like? That's a very broad question, but I guess growing up, what type of, if you could take us behind the scenes a little bit.
He was just, I think now in hindsight, being a dad, he was the greatest example of a dad, I think any of us could ever have. Worked hard. My dad's story is, he came from Springdale. There wasn't an opportunity there for him. He went to McKeesport, bounced around, came to Oakmont, didn't know a soul in this town.
Yeah.
At the time, my parents were 25, borrowed off every family member they knew to buy the business at the time. A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah.
I think it was like $500K at the time, and like they borrowed off everyone.
Functioning at the time, and
So my dad worked for Mr. Burket, who owned the business.
Yeah.
He brought him here as an intern. He was 25 years old, and in a year's time, he was like, "I want to sell. Do you want to buy the business?"
Yeah.
My dad was just my parents were living above a garage in McKeesport, working for this other funeral home, and so he came here. And he was like, I want to, but so at that time, his in-laws, my dad's parents, borrowed them money, aunts, uncles, whatever, to buy the business at the time. I think they bought either the business or the property, rented the other half, then bought them out in time. We grew up above the funeral home. Greatest parents I could have ever asked for, truly.
So what was that like? Because I grew up with Shay, graduated with Shay, your sister, and all growing up, knowing that you guys lived above the funeral home, thinking, that's got to be so weird to live above the funeral home.
I think you make up stories.
It's like...
maybe it isn't as weird as
the closest thing anyone would say is like my girl with Veda. And my wife and I debated about naming Isla Veda because we started there and had Isla there. But it was nothing what you think of. The business is not actually about death or dying. It's a little bit about that, but it's about people. It's about a ministry. It's about helping people. The people we helped over the years, my dad helped over the years, become like, Joey, like family. I mean, I know so many of, close connections through that business.
What was crazy is whenever I was leaving high school and didn't know what I wanted to do, I was going to go to school to be a funeral director. That's what I wanted to do. And I talked to your dad about it, and he was like, I think you would be a good fit, And then I was 19 years old, and I was on the phone calling your dad, and my father had passed away. Mm-hmm. And I just remember my grief and like how good your dad was at that. And I was like, Russ is a funny guy, but like he's really like a therapist in this. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I don't think I have that nurturement inside of me to like, I definitely didn't have it at 19, but I mean, probably now, but it'd be hard to change careers at this point. But your dad was your business is a unique business, and your dad was a unique guy.
Yeah.
I guess part of this is obviously the business aspect, right? So we were talking a little bit before. So you're a licensed life insurance agent as well. What all is under Sean's hat here?
So, to go to mortuary school, you have to have 60 credits of college or 4-year degree. So Joey, you can still go. And you go to mortuary school, you get a funeral directing and embalming degree, which I have. I have a life insurance degree where we write pre-need funeral contracts through both are through the state of PA. So they're both professional degrees, like like a dentist would have, things like that, where we have continuing education, get kind of approved credits yearly to upkeep that state license. So that allows us to legally practice kind of day by day.
You got to have a license for everything in this state except for having a kid. You don't need a license for that.
Maybe you should.
Yeah, probably.
Expensive business to run. I mean, what kind of upkeep aside from,
It is. One thing this last year with my dad gone, he kind of always, Shay, Russ, and myself, we all kind of did our own our things. He did this, I did this, Shay did that. Some of that I knew about, but he kind of kept it. He was good with his finances and he ran a clean ship. Now that it's on we had our end of year, Jerry, you can attest to this. And, all of a sudden you're, trying to make payroll and you have that stress of like these people, my sister, my mom, these part-time people. It is expensive. These buildings, Oakmont, they're old. The electric bill comes every month.
we talked a lot in our last episode with a guy that had a business, and it's just nobody knows until you're in that role. And I think you just got to go through it. I don't think you can prepare for it. People can listen to this all they want. And there's still going to be something that happens in your day-to-day, your business. And you're like, I don't have any money. I'm broke. So
there, on that note, one thing this last year, growth in myself, I think, in the business. I always did these things. I was going to grow. But until my dad died, it's I'll never forget it. The first death we had after that, it was like, you're on. Yeah, and then you learn things. What I've learned in this year in a month or in month one, I couldn't have learned in 15 years.
Yeah.
You're doing it.
I read a little bit of your history on the website, and it was crazy to read that your dad's first funeral was his grandfather?
Yeah.
Your mom's grandfather?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
New Year's Eve, they take over this business.
Yes.
And his first client is his grandfather.
And he was young. He was 25. I was 35. And I had a lot more foot into the business than he did.
Yeah.
He was the man.
Yeah.
So it's Burket.
Probably a good sum it up. Yeah.
So it's Burket Truby Funeral Home.
Right.
Burket was the guy that owned it before.
Right.
What made your dad keep Burket on the
So in our industry, it's very typical that you keep kind of the previous owner's name along. I think if they had a good reputation, the clientele, there's certain people in our town, for instance, that go to Burket Truby or went to English or go to Penn Hills or Plum. It's kind of like some families are almost drawn to that name. Mm-hmm. Now, I think it could work for or against you. If the previous name was, not a good thing, I think you would change it to your name. But my dad always kept it. It is a cost thing, if we would change it on everything, again, through the state. Right now, I think it's safe as Burket Truby.
Yeah. I think that in that moment, when you lose a loved one, you want to call someone you know.
And actually, my dad's, famous thing in our generation, it's not as accurate, but it was the phone book. And he was he was the first funeral home in the phone books. It was Burket. He's like, I'm never changing it.
That's funny. Yeah, you've been there quite a while now, though, because I think it's been maybe 13 years since my grandmother passed away, and you were the phone call.
So I was I'm 36 now. When I came back from where I first went to college, 19, I pretty much was working with my dad full time since then. 17 years.
You're thankful for those 17 years now, man.
Heck yeah, I'm glad I came back.
Yeah, because you waited a couple of years,
Yeah.
That's why you don't wait to take your shot,
Yeah.
That's 1954 here.
Yeah.
How big is the staff these days? How many
So we really, we just had this funeral this past weekend. We handled the Clance funerals of the Plum explosion. And to pull off something like that it's an event. It's an emotional. It has to go right. It has to go smooth. These people are extremely special people. We've kind of morphed into what we are now with kind of my sister, myself, my mom, and I full time, and then a plethora of part time people. And I mean, I walked out of there Saturday, and I said, we have the greatest team right now that we've had. Obviously, wish my dad was a part of that.
Sure. Yeah. You know, your mom, I think she's always been like on the back burner because Russ was always such a big personality. But I always joke with them back in the day because I lived like right off the boulevard, and I would see your mom and dad walk. I called it the Truby Trail. and I always told your dad and your mom when they were both gone, we were just going to put a statue of each one of them on each side of the Truby Trail, just pointing at the other.
Well, I'm trying to get a bench out there that is maybe in the works, but it's been an ongoing process. It's hard to get things done, I will say.
Yeah, you just got to put a bench out there.
Not this time.
You know, let's just go. We can go put a bench out there.
We just go drop it.
Yeah, they're not going to take it down. They're not going to take it down.
Yeah, it's easier to ask for forgiveness than it is to ask for permission.
It sure is.
But you want like the old school Truby bench, like the ads that are at the bus stop. You want that bench?
So I have a bench design that may come to fruition. That's like it's like a Cooperstown baseball bust of my dad.
Yeah.
And some words that I inscribed on kind of like a concrete monument type thing. But it may or may not be placed around town.
Well, if anybody is listening,
who do we got to flex on?
It happen. Let's rename the trail. Just name it the Truby Trail.
I've not made any friends lately, so I'm probably not going to help you. I'm not going to be any help. So.
Well, that's kind of one of the, I mean, like we talked about earlier, Oakmont is a great town, but like sometimes I can have an abrasive personality. I'm friendly with people I know, but like things I do tend to move the needle a little bit.
What?
And I was like, well, I'm getting out of here. Like I got to get to the Hills of O'Hara. At least it's close enough.
You're more anonymous there.
Yeah, nobody knows me. Funny enough, my wife graduated from Fox Chapel, so they all know her. She was like, she took up the space program and like drank beers under the bleachers. So maybe we should stay in Oakmont. I don't know. Who knows? We can move to McKeesport.
You think the kids will get into the business? Do you envision that, or is it kind of up to them?
It's definitely up to them. My dad did not, urge me to pursue it. Right now, my son wants to be a garbage man, which would be great. Yeah. And my daughter's way smarter than I am. So I think she's going to have a different path as well, which we would be very happy with either way.
How did Russ get into it? Is it he knew somebody?
So my dad's story is like he was in the third grade and was like, in like the yearbook at that age was like, what do you want to be? And he was like a funeral director.
Okay.
And everyone thought he was weird. But he knew. And then my mom and him they lived across the street from each other on Beckman Street in Springdale. And my dad started working at Shop and Save over there, which I think was where like Ames was in Harmerville. Mm-hmm. And then he started at the funeral home in Springdale, which is Jarvie Funeral Home, which is still there. But they kind of have a setup now where it's a dad and a son. So there was going to be no future there for him. That's where he went to McKeesport and then ultimately to Oakmont. So when he came to Oakmont, it was kind of like he was, again, living in McKeesport. And the guy, Mr. Burket, said, why don't you come to Oakmont? And he was kind of like, well, it's near Springdale. It's close to home. So he just came here kind of on a whim, which is crazy now to think about.
It's crazy to think about because he's pretty much...
He's been the
Mr. Oakmont.
Yeah, didn't know a person in Oakmont.
I mean, when he died, it rocked this town.
It
really did.
Yeah.
I was just with one of his old buddies from Springdale, Bob Mandick, on Friday night. And Bob was very fond of your dad. But Bob's a funny guy. Like big smile, big teeth. I mean, he's kind of like an older version of Russ Truby. And I'm like, what is it with Springdale back in the day, just putting out studs?
It was.
I guess to work in like taxes and things. So Jerry, what are the advantages of, I guess, the way this was set up? So they lived, in their business. So there's a lot of advantages there, right?
It reduces overhead. You don't have to worry about a home.
So if they're living somewhere else, what does that look like versus his setup?
Well, I mean, just the sheer cost savings of having to, plus you're always at your, which could be a curse too.
It's a blessing. It was a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, you're always at work.
Yeah.
You're not a 9 to 5 guy.
No.
And your business isn't.
No.
It's impossible to be because
Right.
you have to work pretty much
Yeah.
around the clock because
Yeah.
you can get that call.
Yeah.
Jerry, I remember you telling me a story when you were looking to move your office in Oakmont, and you were like, I was going to build out space in my house, and the guy you were working with was like, you can't. You'll never get away from it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like with your situation, I think your dad was like, I'm going to make him live up top, and that way I can maybe relax a little bit every once in a while.
It was, I think, like the perfect set. It was also old school, like before cell phones. You had the landline.
Yeah.
So actually, I remember Mr. Burket, like a story of him. He would be like, if he was like out, apparently he would like go out, and if his wife said like he got a call on the landline, she would like shut like the blind in the upstairs room. So if he was up on the boulevard, he would know to like come home. So and then when my dad, I remember we'd always have like the bag phone plugged into the car, and then if we were out, we had this camper, and remember Buttercup and Butler.
Yeah,
I don't know
yeah.
if you remember that. Sure.
Buttercup, it's still
But
there.
like if we went there, it was like he had the beeper, then you had change to get like a payphone. I mean, now it's easier, but different times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then my wife and I started there. My wife and I, we loved it. She actually talks now like she would move back to the funeral home.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about earlier with kids, like when you guys were kids there, I can remember me, Dan Schmidt, and Shay would play hide and go seek all through the house because it's a unique house. It's just kind of unique,
Yeah.
They've just made a big house and kind of made a house above the house and
Yeah.
stairwells, and it was fun. It was a fun time.
Do you get days off? Do you allow that? Is it hard to transfer between being a dad and then putting on an event such as a funeral?
It is hard. One thing my dad was struggling at the end is kind of that balance. I think it was something that kind of was a part of his passing was finding time to be off per se, but it is hard. Pretty much if I'm in this country, I'm on. So we did go. I since my dad died, I pretty much did not leave Oakmont for about 13 months. Just kind of adjusting the business. I did go away at the beginning of August for 4 days. So I'm getting there. But
Just went into work.
Yeah. I mean, you never turn it off either.
Right, right.
Because even if you planned a trip for 18 months with your family to Barcelona and you get a phone call, your best friend's grandmother died, guess what? You feel obligated now.
Right.
Or something like this plum house explosion. That's kind of important that you'd have to be there for.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
just trying to plan arrangements for that must have been a challenge.
Yeah, and something like that is, year one into kind of my new phase of my career. The only thing my dad probably dealt with something like that was Kurt Young, when he had passed away in the plane crash. Probably of that magnitude. We've had funerals over the years that were massive or hugely important people like my dad. But, you need to be hitting on all cylinders for that. I think we did. I think we helped them out, the littlest piece. But, they're going to need all these communities for years to come, decades.
So what's that like? You get the call that someone, can you walk us through that? Take us, how does that go?
So right now,
Do the cops call you? Like what goes on?
So, yes and no. When I was away in August, I did have a local cop because Joey and I know all the cops in town. Yeah. Jerry probably too.
Well, I know for different reasons than you know. I'll tell you that right now.
So what happens is kind of two different ways. If you have someone that dies at home, there is normally a cop there, an EMS, a nurse. They call into our funeral home line, which does come to my cell phone here. Okay. If someone passes at a hospital, kind of the hospital staff will call us. Again, it comes to my phone here. And then, I'll normally touch base with a family member at that time, kind of talk about, who the person was if I don't know who it is already, and then kind of get a game plan going into that day or the next day of what we're going to do.
I guess we try to share some tips and tricks. So obviously some of these things you can't avoid or you don't anticipate, but if you could game plan for a funeral from, I guess, a father's perspective, you're suggesting to buy those plots up front. Could you talk us through like life insurance?
Yeah.
Like what you would suggest for everybody if you're trying to sell some things?
One thing we're going to actually do here soon is going to do like a lunch and learn event in Oakmont or the area, which is like answering these questions. I think Oakmont specifically, you had Russ Truby and recently Diane Harrell was a lady that passed away unexpectedly, both pretty much the same way, 67, 73 years old.
Yeah.
That both, my dad was in this industry for his whole life, and, we had things that were not they were in order, but they were still like, T's to cross size to,
Yeah.
So, we do a ton of pre-planning, which someone could pre-plan their whole funeral out or cremation out. This is what I want done.
From the song they want played.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I think my grandma had the dress out. Like
Yeah.
she had the dress picked out. The entry music to the church, the exit music to the church was all.
Yeah.
And Russ had it all. It was he just pulled the file. Like,
you pull the file. It's great for people that are not married, people that don't have kids, because eventually, you do pass or die unexpectedly. And it's like, who do we call? What do we do? In that pre-planning, we do pre-funding, which in our industry guarantees you today's cost for a future event, which is a great product for the consumer. We like the product because down the road, the funeral, the funds are there to be paid for. But, it's great for someone of any age to get that, put away that money's there, at least something, even if you put an amount away for your kids or whoever to have to plan something with. So it's not all on their burden.
especially if you have family that's conflicted. Like think about when your mom passes away and you have 4 people in the room that all have a certain feeling about how this should go down.
Yeah.
Well, the person you're honoring could already have that done. Like pick the casket, Keller, everything.
Right.
And you don't have to argue with your sister about which casket and your brother about which psalm, like whatever, it's just set in stone.
Right.
Yeah, that's I guess to tie this together, that's one of the memories I have of your dad. I have several, but obviously the larger than life personality always, just made you feel welcome. But it was after my mom passed away and I had no idea about anything. I was 25 at the time. I didn't, that was my second parent that was gone. So I didn't know anything. And he kind of walked me through that whole process. And I remember him covering a portion of the bill and just being so blown away that in one of the darkest moments of my life, he just had that generosity about him. And it was just, I still think about that very often. And I'm sure he's, and you're going through this now and you've been through it the past 15 years or so in the business. You have very unique opportunity. I think you have a profound impact on people's lives just from the business that you're in. So it's pretty awesome.
See, that's a story. It doesn't surprise me. That's a story that I hear thousands of. I remember when your mom passed, and I think I was talking to Ashley about it recently, and so many stories of he did these things that he didn't tell anyone about, and then you hear about it, and there's thousands of them. There's him covering people's rent in this town, or groceries, or at Christmas time. He did a lot with everything he was blessed with.
Thank you for listening. And now a brief word from our sponsor. Streamline your life with Duro Cleaners' complete pickup and delivery service. From your doorstep to their state-of-the-art cleaning facility and back, all without you lifting a finger. Get time back in your day and fresh, ready-to-go clothes. And just wait, big things are coming soon to make your experience even better. Visit DuroCleaners.com because life's better without laundry. And And now, back to the show.
Yeah, I think that's something that kind of gets lost in the modern era with people. People want to do things for people and then put their name on them.
Yeah.
And then that kind of waters down the efforts. With your dad. It's just like he sponsored every little league team. He would do everything for everybody. And, and I think it was funny. I was 19 when my father passed away. And on my 21st birthday, Russ sends me a 40 of Budweiser and balloons for my 21st birthday because my dad wasn't going to be around to buy me my first drink.
Yeah.
And it did come from Springdale Floral, just so you know. He was loyal to Springdale.
Yeah, Springdale buy your first drink.
It's almost like, so his profession was to just be there for people in their sometimes darkest time.
Yeah.
But he took it so literally that even when there wasn't death involved, and I shared one of those stories with you when he passed, and I don't need to share it now because I don't want you to get emotional, but it was, watching him in his act of kindness just come out of nowhere and, leave everybody in the room with tears in their eyes. Just like, he didn't need to do that.
Yeah.
But he was there for people that were in need, even when those people didn't know that they were in need. And it was, he will be very much missed. And I said it when it happened and for the several months after that, it was continuing to kind of shake the community. Because I have never seen anybody that's passed away in this town or these communities, these surrounding communities that I've known, that like 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks after, there were still people posting on social media about stories that they had. And it was like, it was crazy to read them all. So I'm sure it was tough, and I'm sure it took you guys a long time to get through them, if you ever did. But
Still are.
Yeah. And that's,
How's that going? So, I mean, it's been a year, month approximately. It's obviously it's life-changing.
So grief is, I thought being in the industry, growing up in a funeral home, about grief, but you don't until it smacks you in the face.
and he was 67.
Yeah. I mean, you guys have been through it. I think you lose a 99-year-old grandfather, you're sad, you're, all these things, but you lose death like that, unexpected, young. There's phases of it. I've been in this past year, ups and downs, valleys, mountains. I think recently I'm coming into kind of like where I'm at in a decent, okay place. It's definitely hard because life moves on. Like, you have your kids at home. Like, I'm trying to be their version of, what my dad was to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which I could never be that, but, they didn't want to see me moping around and crying and being down. Like, they want me how I am.
Well, I've learned that, like, I'm a young dad too. I have a 6-year-old, the oldest 3. And like, I always think like, I can never be like my dad, like I don't have the same problems that he had to get through to help me, but like, I think they get to judge that, like at the end of the day, when they're in their pushing 40 and they're sitting there talking about you can't say you can't be him,
Yeah.
You might be a mountain of a man to them someday. And I hope that you are. But I try to remind myself of that. Like, sometimes I don't like the version of the dad I am.
That's true.
And I'm like, you know what? I don't need to like me. I just need to be me and be who I was and who I am. Consistency is a big thing. Yeah. And then I'll let them decide, if they're 22 and they never want to see me again, then that's it. But like, I don't think that's going to be the case,
Yeah.
So it's hard. It's hard being a dad.
Being a parent is hard.
It's a lot harder to be a mom for all those moms that might tune in.
Right.
You guys got the tough end of it. Like, but being a dad's not easy either,
It's really not.
No, it's not.
It's sometimes fun though. Like, you get a new toy or something. Like, my nieces and nephews are in town, and it's like, and you can just have fun. Like you kind of put the discipline on the back burner.
Yeah.
And then we were starting school today. So like then you're like bath time and you start thinking of all these little things with school and you're like, man, I forgot all about that. Like to make sure you're up, it's just a whole new, like, it's like I'm going back to school. Like I'm not going back to school. I get up and go to work every day of the year.
Gotta get back into rhythm.
Yeah. It's like tonight I'm thinking like, don't wait up for me because you got school tomorrow, like that kind of stuff.
So that's something to kind of expand on because I think we're all fathers.
Yeah.
And all trying to run businesses and run, careers. And how do you balance, because I know how busy your business is and I feel you. And I know everybody at this table does. So how do you balance time with kids with work and how to be, in a world where that phone rings and you get text messages and you could be back at work in a heartbeat. Yeah. How do you balance that with time with the kids?
So, part of, I think, coming into where I am right now, I'm in a really good place kind of where I'm at with that too. There's certain things like me as a dad, like I have to do, like I have to get up at 5 a.m. Like I have to have my 2 cups of coffee. I have to work out. Okay. Like it's not physical, like it's mental. Like I have to do that to be like on. The work-life balance, I mean, my wife is a saint. She does do 98% of, everything at home. That's kind of like our deal, our trade-off, and she's cool with that. And I'm very fortunate and blessed by her. So she does a ton of way too much of the home stuff. I do way too much of the work stuff. But we're almost like, we always say we're kind of like a 1940s like marriage. Not that like she's waiting for me like with dinner on a plate when I come in the door. That would be nice.
We all have things to work
toward. But we always say like and my industry is old school like that.
Yeah.
So we always say like she does probably too much of the parenting, that type stuff. I do a little more of the work, but it's a balance right now. We're in a good groove. One great thing about Oakmont is like you can be at work and then boom, you're at the softball game. I mean, you remember my dad show up in a softball game in a suit and tie, all the time. Like, that was like his thing.
So is Amanda? Is she a stay-at-home mom?
So right now she is. She's a teacher by trade. When we had our son, she stayed home, and then we were in this phase where, things were moving along. And then my dad dies. Yeah. And my schedule went from busy to very busy. So yeah, we're in our roles right now.
Yeah. My wife's a stay-at-home mom right now. And like, I don't picture how it works any other way.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, Jerry, you see people at school. It's like everyone's grinding.
Yep.
It's like people that like have it or they don't have, everyone's fighting for that, rat race that they're in. Yep. These houses we were talking before this started, they aren't cheap. We live in a nice area. And it's like every month, trying to make ends meet. Yeah. And there's trade-offs. I know working parents have a trade-off. Stay-at-home parents have a trade-off.
Yeah. So my wife works from home or is home with the kids now. And when we first made that decision, it was actually that's something we have in common. So when my daughter was born, she's 5 now. She went back to work. She's a teacher by trade as well. Went back to work for a little bit, and then we decided that it was too hard with both kids, and that it was just going to make more sense for her to stay home. And it was something she wanted to do. Yeah, it was her call. And when we made that decision, I was terrified. I'm a business owner. My business is accounting and taxes, so my income is very front heavy during the year.
Right.
So when we were just getting started, I mean, October, November, December, January, we were like, what the fuck? Yeah. I mean, there were times when we were like scraping to buy Christmas gifts.
Yeah.
Trying to budget it out with a growing business, and there's money you just have to spend in a business, and then you run out of money in August, and you're like, now what the hell are we gonna do? So there were some years that were really, really hard. But like Joe said, at this point, I couldn't imagine. I mean, there's so much stuff that has to get done at home with 2 kids that I don't know how working parents, like the parents that have 2 jobs. I don't know how they do it.
Yeah.
You know, with all these things that go on, with all these activities and, you know, in-service days for the school, and now instead of doing snow days, they do virtual days, and it's like, how the hell?
That's crazy.
How the hell do parents that have 2, you know, both spouses go to a job every day? How the hell do they do it?
Yeah.
I mean, you have to it's like everybody's on call with their kids now.
Right.
Like you have to be able to be at the school, and I just don't know how. I don't know how we do it, and we have a similar situation where my wife does way too much of the housework and kid stuff, and I do way too much here, and that's a challenge. That's why I asked you, because it's a challenge that I live every day. And you said, you know, you don't always like the father that you are. There's days where you're like, man, I'm working too much, and I'm worn out from work, and I go home and I'm burnt out and I'm in a bad mood, and then I'm fighting with myself all night. Don't take it out on the kids. Yeah. Don't take it out on the kids. It's so hard. Or you get an email at dinner time, and you start emailing back and forth with a client in a text message group, and now you're just not present anymore.
Right.
And
You mean to tell me not all your clients like me and text you first and said, you have a minute to talk? Not all clients do that for you?
No, unfortunately, no. And some of them don't know what it means to be. It's Sunday at dinner time, and I don't want to hear your email, or I don't want to talk to you right now. No offense to anybody that's listening to this, but you know, and there's sometimes where it has to happen. But that's the thing in your business. Like most accounting firms are Monday through Friday business hours. Right. Now, I have special relationships with a lot of my clients where I do get Sunday phone calls. And it is what it is, but your business literally is 24/7.
Yeah.
So how, you know, that was my question, is how do you maintain that and still be there for your kids? It's got to be really hard.
One day at a time.
Well, you said you hit it home earlier. You probably have a pretty good staff at this point. You know,
I mean, we have a great team right now, but it is like that. Like sometimes my Saturdays and Sundays are bigger days than like Monday, Tuesday. Right. Like this Saturday, I have a funeral at 11. I know I probably won't be home till 2, 3. At least right now, it's only Tuesday at this point. But then like last Wednesday, we went to Kennywood at like 11 a.m. because I was like, I'm free. Let's go.
Yeah.
So the flexibility. And Kennywood wasn't busy on a weekday either.
or dangerous.
I heard that their hours are. I have a buddy that showed up at like 10:30 in the morning one day, and they didn't open till like 2 or 3. And he's like, "What the hell am I gonna do with these kids? It's all this
all day long.
It's
you're ready to go to
It's
Kennywood.
really changed since we were kids.
It's like the Griswolds when they get to Wally World and they can't go in.
They can't go in. That's what he did. He ended up going to like Eaton Park for like 2 hours, and then he took kids to Dave and Buster's. He's like, I don't know what to do. He's like, it's the longest day of my life.
Before entering Kennywood.
Before even getting to Kennywood, he's like, I'm done. Yeah.
I guess as far as that daily discipline goes, so all business owners, I feel like have to have that in some regard. You mentioned getting up at 5. Yeah. Did you get that from your dad, or is that just what you need?
No, so my dad's routine was getting up and going over to Alexander's gym. Okay. Yeah. And then he went to like 3 different drive-thrus in Harmerville. So like he worked out and then went to like Burger King, McDonald's, Wendy's. Literally at his funeral, he had like 5 like drive-through ladies come by and be like, I talk to your dad every day in the drive-through line. Mine is, you know, I feel like right now trendy on social media is these like morning routines where you get up and there's 19 steps of like meditation, then read your Bible, then blah, blah, blah. I mean, I don't know how you have time to have a life after you do that. But mine is just, I found maybe in grief, maybe in, through the pandemic, really, it was like gyms were closed. I started working out at home. So I get up. Something about my clock is like 5 a.m. I have my coffee. It's like my quiet time before the kids are up. Work out.
What's in your coffee? You drink it black?
Just black.
Okay.
There's nothing.
You drink so much coffee.
It's
you
just
don't have
black.
time for that.
Coffee's a tool.
But I've just found like, and it's definitely a grief thing now. Like I have to do that. If I don't do that, I'm not as good throughout the day.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm always looking for that morning motivation because as I get older, it's harder. Like
Yeah.
I should be at work at 6. So like my policy's out the door by 5:44. And now as I get older, man, I see like it takes longer for me to like get going, you know, and I got a CPAP machine and it kind of helped the whole morning thing. And now I'm like, today I didn't go to work at all in the morning for the first time in 7 years that we've been open. I let the people open the shop because it was the first day of school and I didn't want to run around. And I'm like, I could see how you could get used to this. So like I gotta get back on the bike tomorrow or else I'm going to be like working 8 in the morning till 9 at night or something. So it's got to be disciplined, right?
You got to. I at least think.
How about the pandemic? So how did your business change in a pandemic?
So pandemic, you know, we were listed, I guess, as essential business at the time. We were kind of, it's funny, I was talking to someone about this the other day that was like, remember when if you sat at the bar, you had to like order food to have a drink or something like that was crazy.
And they had tables next to the bar.
Yeah.
You couldn't sit at the bar.
It was like you had to have an appetizer.
Yeah,
if you got
hot dogs were commonplace thing.
We at the beginning, I think for like funerals especially, it was hard. I mean, I remember one of the first ones we had was a friend's dad that passed, and you could have 10 people in the building at the time.
That was set at the county level?
I think so. That's how it was. And then we would go up to like 30, then it was 100, and then it was still like masks inside, things like that. But it was hard to operate like that. But I notice now it's changed a lot of things like forever, like people in a space like that, like kissing, hugging, like people now. Yeah, I think people realize like, you know, I don't want to shake that stranger's hand necessarily.
Strangers,
You know, I do notice people, their behaviors that did change. I think it's changed everything for a lot of businesses.
Yeah, I mean, I see it a lot, like like when you're golfing and stuff, like times before, like people do space out a little bit, like, but I mean, I think I ran into one of our old teachers at Home Depot, like right in the heart of the pandemic, and we just naturally hugged in the parking lot. And then like we kind of looked at each other real weird, and he was like, well, if you didn't kill me in high school, I guess you're not going to kill me now. So it's, your business, it was unique though, because I can remember going to funerals at that time, and it's generally warm when you get in the rooms, and like you had the mask on.
Yeah.
Like it was like if you had to be there for any length of time, it was tough.
Well, I noticed in that space a lot of like your facial recognition with people, like you see eyes, but not like mouth, kind of your whole lower half of your face. You really communicate in that kind of like compassion.
Yeah. You're cracking jokes to someone that's just melting under that mask. You're like, maybe that's probably why I'm not a funeral director.
Competitive industry? Do you buy out competitors? Is that even a thing, or just kind of word of mouth?
That is a thing. Pittsburgh is like a very old school industry in funeral service. The rest of the country has these bigger firms that are just like massive companies. So Pittsburgh is kind of like old school, and there's like a few big dogs. There's kind of like middle-sized businesses, and then a lot of like entrepreneurs like my dad that started like real little, and there's still a ton of those guys around, but they're all like my dad's age, 67, 70. I think our industry is going to really change over the next 10 years of all those guys, whether they sell, like right now on the new McCabe Brothers sold in the city. They're like a long time Pittsburgh name.
That's in Lawrenceville, right?
Penn Avenue and Walnut Street.
Okay.
So they just like sold out of nowhere.
Did they sell locally to someone?
No, they just sold like property.
Oh, okay.
So they sold the property
Completely
on Walnut
gone.
Street, which is worth a lot of money.
Right.
And I think Winter's Funeral Home in Bloomfield sold. I think you're going to see a trend of that happening. And then you could have someone like buy out a competitor.
Do you foresee Pittsburgh changing in the fact that where these big companies are going to come in and start buying up funeral homes?
So there's a company called SCI that owns funeral homes in the Pittsburgh area. They're national firms. They come in and buy out like a small guy that wants to sell. They still operate it again, kind of as the same name that we talked about it, but it's owned by a bigger company. But I think there is going to be a big shift in our industry in that.
Do you see yourself becoming one of those bigger companies? Would you ever consider buying out competing funeral homes?
So, yes, I think we would. I do see us growing because of our location, how we do things. I think we have a great product. I could sell anyone on what we do at our place with value. When someone calls in, we call them kind of price shoppers, where they'll call in and say, like, what is your price for this? And we go through, we have a GPL, general price list, that by law we have to describe. And I stand on that like Bible. I think what you get from our place, our location, our people, the price is very average for Pittsburgh. It's not high, it's not low.
Your price was
correct.
Price, not quality.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then, if someone's like comparing us to A, B, or C, I just hope that, they compare apples to apples like any industry.
Yeah.
Now to circle back a little bit, you said like a lot of guys are your dad's age in this industry. Do you have anybody that remains in another funeral home that is like someone that you could call now that your dad is no longer in the business with you every day?
A mentor.
Do you have like a mentor now, or?
So I have this guy, Rob Karish, that was my dad's best friend, that they went to mortuary school together. He has a funeral home in Burrell. And I kind of grew up in the industry with kind of teachings from him and my dad. So I had like the best of both worlds. They specialized in different things. And so I do lean on him for some advice. There's some guys in the industry that, reached out to me when my dad died that, you just see how they've done things over the years, moves they've made. Even bad moves. I mean, those are the ones you can definitely learn from.
Yeah.
So
any come to mind that your dad was sour about, or an opportunity he missed out on, or? I know he got into real estate a little bit. Is that right?
One thing he does dabble into real estate now. My mom and sisters and I are, managing that. He loved it. We're kind of, we may hire a property manager. I'm not sure.
I know one.
But like he liked it as like a little hobby. I'm finding it, you need to focus on what you do.
Yeah.
I think, and then maybe let someone else manage that.
Yeah.
It's a great time to even maybe think about just unloading property at this point, like
how many does he have?
So he has the funeral home building. He has two to the right. A lot of people don't know this, but if you're looking at the funeral home, he has 2 units to the right. The one house has 5 apartments. The next house is a duplex. And then he owned at the corner, building. Do you remember it was like a daycare way back in the day on the corner? Yeah. And then as he prior to that helped Riverside Community Church, and his pastor there, he helped them purchase that building at the time. And then they kind of bought it, back off my dad. And then we got forever use out of the parking lot between the funeral home and the church.
Nice.
So, and then in Oakmont, he has the Oakmont Deli building. Yeah. The deli, the upstairs. He has a house on A Street and his house. So
that house on A Street, when I was selling my house, kept coming up in the comparables, and I'm like, Rush Truby doesn't live on A Street.
I assume you own the house at this point, right? The whole building, the funeral home and all that, or are you still? Is there a mortgage still?
Oh no. My mom is owner of the business, kind of with how his death occurred. They paid off everyone kind of back to his story very aggressively at the time.
Nice.
And he was smart. I mean, he got the deli for a song and a dance at the time. And everything he has is paid off. So he did well for himself. He really did.
Well, he was smart. And like we were saying before we went on air, property values in Oakmont have changed so dramatically where, back when he was buying properties, you could get things for a song and a dance, especially if they need a little bit of work.
Right.
Now, I mean, everything's worth so much money. And
right.
It's great. It's great for anybody that already owns property, but I don't know if I'd want to move into this town now. It's tough to get into this town now. And, but yeah, it was smart, and especially to be in the position that you're in or your mom's in at this point. That's a good position to be in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any town in Pittsburgh that has a top tier school, public school now, I mean, you're not entering under 250,000.
Yeah, and even with the market, I mean, the market has kind of receded a little bit in some neighborhoods, but the neighborhoods, like you said, with the good school districts, there's no inventory. So houses are still going for asking or over asking. And I mean, it's crazy, even with the interest rates being where they are. And you're not seeing a lot of properties on the market. And I was reading last week about that, and they were talking about why, because, being involved in real estate, we kind of expected this to be kind of a bubble, and that all of a sudden there's going to be properties for sale and foreclosures, and with the rest of the economy that's kind of not in a great place right now. But with the last few years of having those rates, the reason they're saying that the reason why there's no inventory is that nobody wants to sell their house.
Right.
If you have a 2.75% interest rate for 30 years, you're going to make damn sure you make that mortgage payment, and you're not leaving.
Right.
Because how could you? You're going to not be able to move into a house even as nice as what you have, because your mortgage is going to be double.
Yeah.
Sean, how long have you lived in Oakmont? The house that was on 9th Street.
We right around you, right, Jerry? We
2016?
bought our house 2015.
Okay, right before us.
And like we were extremely fortunate, kind of looked at the house. It was out of our price range.
Yeah, so
yeah. Like we were looking anywhere, and then we looked at Oakmont. I'm like, I can't afford to live in Oakmont. Like that's how I always felt living above the funeral home. My parents were like, we cannot live on the hill in Oakmont. Like that's why they lived at the funeral home. Right. Truly. We looked at this house. The lady, her dad was moving out. They were selling the house, and she really was extremely generous in kind of having us make an offer and go from there. I mean, now, like you said, I wouldn't want to buy a house in this town right now, and it's crazy.
Yeah, I just had an appraisal done at mine, and I was like, I wouldn't pay that.
Like they're like we have okay houses, but they're not,
Yeah.
It's not new construction.
No.
It's funny how similar our stories are. We moved in around the same time, and I had the same situation where the Saxons owned my property before us. And, Mrs. Saxon was there, and she let us in before the open house, and we walked it, and I put the offer in, and I put it in with Frank Bonarotti, who was the listing agent, and I said, listen, I don't want to insult anybody, but I'm going to give you the offer that is the absolute highest I can go. And if Mrs. Saxon, she expressed to us that she was excited that we were going to raise a family in her home.
Yeah.
And I said, listen, I'm going to put an offer in. It's as much as I can do. I'm not trying to insult her. If she wants to hold off and find it, she will get somebody to give her full asking.
Yeah.
This is what I can do. And he was like, are you kidding me? And I'm like, just don't even write it up. Just call her and ask her. And her one son, Ed, was in charge. And I said, call Ed. And he pulled out his little black book, and I'm like, what number do you want? Do you want his office or sell his home? And he's like, give me his cell phone number, you smart ass. And he called him, and that was what they decided. She said the fact that I was going to raise my family in that house meant more to her than the money. And
right.
She took my offer, didn't counter, just said, I'll take it. So we were very, very fortunate. And and we love it. We're right next to the school.
Yeah,
so it's like you can't, walk our kids to school every day. It's a blessing.
Priceless.
Yeah.
I never even rode a bus and all, like other than for sports
Field
activities and field trips.
Yeah.
And then
we could have walked to Springdale to play, probably.
Yeah, exactly.
To play then. But so I remember last year, kindergarten, Reese was going to ride the bus for the first time. We're like laying in bed for like weeks, and she was stressing about it and asking me questions. And I'm like, I'm not the guy for the job. You're going to have to talk to your mom. Daddy walked to school, like kindergarten, all the way. Like me and my sister would walk 4 blocks up the hill until we were in 6th grade. And then 6th grade, it was 4 blocks down the hill.
Yep.
You know, and it was walking everywhere. So it's one thing we definitely lack where we are now. It's 20-minute drive to get a gallon of milk.
Yeah. I don't know about that. Like we've talked about moving out of Oakmont or, you know, to somewhere in the woods somewhere. And that's always the thing. It's like, I don't want to drive 20 minutes to go to the grocery store.
Yeah.
You know?
I don't know, man. My neighbors don't bug me. They leave me alone. When I was at Oakmont, you get home from a long day and you're like, I just want to go inside and see my family. And then they're like, hey, man, how you know? And it's like,
that's how our street is.
15 minutes.
It is.
And then when you're done, like you're just getting done talking to this neighbor and the guy pulls up across the street. He's like, hey, man, I haven't seen you in a while. And I'm like, well, ask him about me because I need to go inside. A lot of times my wife would be looking out the window with a newborn like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like Oakmont, you know.
Our street is like that, especially during school drop-off time.
Oh, yeah.
Man, I spend more time talking to people on the way back from the school than I do taking my kids to school.
Just put a desk in your front yard. Start billing people. Billable minutes.
Yeah, right.
Just a little trailer or something.
Yeah.
Mobile accounting. Good deal.
Yeah.
How's inflation treating the business? Is it squeezing you at all? Has prices gone up? Like, what does that look like over the past couple of years for you?
So that we have price increases in our industry yearly. Most guys do. But as far as like our products, like our caskets, vaults, like cemetery fees, they have not been affected like kind of the market like you would think. Well, our pre-need funded funerals have held up with cost, with present day costs. So when we have we call it a shortfall when a pre-need funeral is kind of like short. For instance, the Verona Oakmont Cemetery near us, they just raised their grave digging fee. It went from $1,500 to $2,500.
Wow.
Now they hadn't changed it in years.
Yeah.
So they changed it one time instead of like $100 a year. But as a whole, our industry did not kind of get shook with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now that pre-need insurance, so if, you know, just ballpark numbers, if I were to buy a policy, it's $10,000. Now, if when I were to eventually cash in on that because I passed away and it's $17,000, does the funeral home get the 17?
So we guarantee our services and merchandise at that cost when you purchase. We have cash advance items that are kind of out of our control. Things like that cemetery fee that I just said, newspaper listings, obituaries, flowers, church fees, things that change that we can't control. So when that amount comes out, we kind of price it where it's at. Normally the family does get a refund back still.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's like a big, you're selling a product for a nationwide insurance company. So they're taking that person's money and investing it, and they're secure with it. So they're not, you know, they're able to gain, and then that offsets. So
I mean, it's basically a life insurance policy.
It is.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's basically like a $10,000 life insurance policy.
Instead of, $2 million policy.
Right.
And I'd venture to say that 65% of the people don't even know about that.
No, I bet it's more than that.
Yeah.
I bet it's more than that.
Did you guys know about it?
I lived it, so I did it.
You did.
Because like my gram was 70 some years old when my father died.
Right.
And it was 13, 14 years between the time that my father died and his dad, and the number changed significantly. So my grandmother was like, well, by the time I'm thinking, what are you going to live for another 30 years? Yeah. She said, by the time I die, we're not going to be able to afford it. And she wanted the 2 to 4, 7 to 9, 2 to 4, 7, 9, 3 days. Like she wanted the whole experience. And it was, that's the old school way.
Man, I'll tell you what, I've gone to those funerals and like of loved ones that you have to be there for all of it. Yeah. And I think, who the hell would want to do this?
I know.
It is so draining to be there for
I always
2 different days.
Liquor license. You should just get a liquor license down there, cash bar at the front. And
can you
that's
do that?
where the state board comes into play.
Yeah, they don't allow
those
that.
License we were talking about. No, I don't think so.
You can't even like offer wine or anything.
No.
Not even during.
No.
That has to be
We
at
would
church.
get fined.
Yeah. Okay.
It's not BYOB.
No.
What if I bring in a flask?
You go, that's why we have these wonderful establishments in town.
Yeah, right next door.
Yeah.
Plug or-
Well, yeah.
Who is this podcast broadcast by?
We don't have any restaurateurs that we want to shout out, but if you're going to an
Not yet.
Oakmont funeral, you're only going to one Oakmont
That's
establishment.
right.
Is English still around?
They are.
Okay.
Yeah, they are around.
Is there animosity or is it just
No.
Yeah.
Kind of what we were talking about earlier, the name recognition. They've had a few owners over.
So the Englishes aren't involved anymore.
They are not involved anymore. So they've kind of had 3 or 4 change in ownerships over the years. But he is a fine competitor, and we have a good rapport.
You need competition
Absolutely.
in business because first of all, you couldn't handle it all.
Yeah.
Like if you're the only game in town, you're just busy. And then the other thing is like, it's life. You're going to have relationships with people that don't necessarily want to do business with you.
Right.
So they just go up the street and you don't have to worry about dealing with that interaction. So
Yeah.
Now, when this current owner decides to sell, is that going to be Truby too?
TBD.
TBD.
back to the pre-planning thing from both a customer side and a business side? How are you not so like, let's say I buy something today and then I die in 40 years. You're telling me you're not taking a loss there?
So there are these things called shortfalls. Now that would be an extreme example.
Well, I hope to live 40 years, Sean. I mean,
how are you living nowadays?
5 o'clock in the morning, 2 cups of coffee.
he's giving me 79. Come on. I mean,
In that example, when I use our age group, as reference, if we would buy that policy, all 4 of us, we're going to make out on that.
As a customer.
Think of it as you're buying a good meal today.
As a customer.
Right. You're buying a good meal today that you're eating in 30 years.
Yeah.
What's the price going to be?
And he's protected by the bigger company.
Right.
He gets paid whatever it is.
Exactly.
Except for the intangibles.
So you'll still, for numbers, it's $10,000 today. 40 years from now, it's $25,000.
So we wash all of our services and merchandise of that original plan. We keep it at that day's cost. The prices that I kind of said that Joey's saying, we call them cash advanced items in our industry, which is like things that change without our doing. Death certificates, for instance, they just went from $6 a piece to $20 a piece. $20. So they look just like your birth certificate. It's an official document.
Yeah.
But they're $20 a piece.
That's
so most
crazy.
people get like 10 of them. That's $200.
That's crazy because everybody needs an original.
Right. Life insurance companies, you know, car, title, house, thing like that.
And I'm pretty sure, if I remember right, if you don't get enough at the beginning, when you go back to the well, you pay more.
So it's the same price as long as those prices haven't changed. Okay. But someone can call me up, hey, I need a death certificate from 3 years ago. We do order it, and it's now it's $20.
Okay.
But yeah, a lot of times they have to be originals.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
can you print those for us?
I cannot. There's probably a guy that can
Or not the guy?
get you, across a border somewhere with
Actually,
a passport and a few documents.
my first legal activity was forging a birth certificate for my brother.
This is going to be on the internet, right?
That's fine.
Okay.
It's all good. His last name was wrong on his birth certificate. Okay. And he wanted to play hockey at Plum, and I didn't change the age, but he didn't know at the time that his stepdad his dad was not his biological father.
Is this Billy?
Yeah.
Okay.
So not to air him out, but I guess everybody knows who my brother is. But not to he was 13, I think, and he didn't know. And they felt like at the registration table at a hockey tournament wasn't the time for him to find out that his last name was different. So I literally did the old copy and pasted the background and printed it and then wrinkled it and copied it. It was pretty slick. Passed. I mean, I should have made him 7
I'm
years
just thinking
old.
of Joey in high school making fake IDs, like McLovin or something. I'm just
We always had a plug.
Class president. That's why.
Yeah.
you
Yeah, you guys are both class president.
That's right.
Well, you were the class president at Point Park.
Did you have a reunion yet? or no?
We had our.
Oh, okay.
They do
we had
this?
10-year reunion. Yeah.
Wait, they do this? I
We
think
still
had
waiting
class
for
We
reunions.
had one.
We still waiting for ours.
We just missed the 20th. That would have been nice. I mean, I've been impeached at this point, I think. So I think someone else should hop on board. No, were you the president of the class at
No,
Mortuary School
Mortuary
also?
School, yes.
And at Riverview?
No, not at Riverview.
That's why you had a class reunion.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
over here taking credit for his 10-year reunion.
No, we had the Elks. It was down at the Elks.
Probably really
You
nice.
had a 10-year reunion. Who was your class president?
I think it was Kate Anderson.
Do you think she'd take on class of 2002?
I think we would just have like Springdale does like an all class reunion that my mom went to. I mean, and then at the 10-year reunion, they were like, "We're done with this." And then what they said, they were like, "Sean, we know you're going to be in Oakmont for probably like forever, so you're doing the 20-year reunion." So I think ours is actually coming up.
I
But
think
I'm just going to be like, what we did. We were at the Elks, and then everyone eventually like went to Carnivores. I would probably just say, "Hey, everyone, meet at Carnivores at like 7 o'clock."
Yeah, I think COVID really screwed us up. I mean, we were real
Were
close.
you 02?
Yeah, we were really close to throwing
Guys,
one, and then
you know
COVID hit.
what? At this stage,
02.
the amount of people that are left, we could probably just have it at the cigar bar.
Were you the same class?
We're all 3 and 02.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Yeah, I probably should do something with that. I mean, I've talked to people about it, and I'm like, if you really want to have one, just plan it. No one's going to be like, whoa, did you run this by Joe? Like, is he cool with
Joe
this?
know about this?
I mean, I also had
Like an inherited power you
was a
have.
vice president.
You're an elected official. So
There was a
that
vice
comes
president.
with it.
Who else was on the?
Secretary.
Who else is
Who
in
did
your
you
cabinet?
beat? You beat some distinguished scholars.
I probably fixed the ballot box, but no, I mean, I think Haley was vice president.
Okay.
Who? Haley. Yeah.
And then RJ
Okay.
Hurt was the treasurer.
The treasurer.
But who did you
Did he
run
have money
against?
to run?
Yeah,
Is that just a title?
Like we handled all this wrapping paper sales for
okay.
the fundraisers.
Okay.
Who did you run against, though?
I think I ran against Emily Davis, and then my senior year I ran unopposed.
Yeah.
Back.
Yeah.
It's hard to beat an incumbent.
Well, hey, when Trump lost the last election, me and my wife were watching coverage, and I was like, I told you, it's the hardest thing to do in the business is back-to-back president. Not too many people can do it.
'Cause you have
and I looked at her right in the
experience
eyes, and she hates it because I always I'm like, class president 88, what's up? And, she's like, I said, no, you don't need to say anything. I'll go to bed. So in Oakmont, we saw here that you do some work with the Len Anderson Christmas Fund.
Yes.
What else do you do in town?
Oh, so Len Anderson is huge, and actually, my wife and I, Jared, you could understand this. We're trying to get what I call New Oakmont involved, which Len Anderson is a great thing. It's people in Oakmont, Verona that can give, and it helps out people that need. So, you give a donation and it helps out people at Christmas time to receive that donation in Giant Eagle gift cards. That's a huge thing we do. We do a Veterans Day program that we're trying to reboot since COVID. My dad hadn't done it since 2019. Where we honor all the veterans in town, the veterans that passed away. We normally have about like 45 veterans that pass away throughout a year. Mm-hmm. We honor them. I took my dad's place on the Memorial Day committee, which is his spot up at the cemetery.
That was always big for him.
That was big. So this year went well there. We lost Diane Harrell. She was on the committee as well. So there's a lot of change in Oakmont. Between the churches, there's like 4 new priests, and there's 2 at the Catholic Church, a new priest at the Greek Church. Steve Wilson retired at the Presbyterian Church. So there's really like turnover in town. We lost a funeral director as well. That's huge. And then I'm on the Verona Oakmont Cemetery Board, which is we kind of caretake the cemetery up there. Make kind of day-to-day decisions on that. But this community, this is about, we have a business that helps people, I hope, at their worst time, like we've all experienced now. Yeah. I think it helps when someone, is going to do it, how you would want it done. And we try to, we love this town. We try to give all of ourselves to it to better it.
How do people get involved with the Christmas Fund? Is that through your website, or how could they?
So we do an article in the newsletter that goes around town. I think we get it on the Grapevine email. I'm trying to get it out. Jerry, I was talking about getting it out to maybe like in folders to kids, to parents that don't know what it is, kind of reboot, like who was this person? Why, how did it start? It kind of transitioned from Len Anderson to my parents. My parents ran it for years. My mom, my wife, and I ran it last year, and then my mom's stepping down, and my wife and I are just going to do it this year.
Yeah, because not only the people that want to give,
right,
you still want to get the information, because a lot of people don't even know it's available to take.
Right,
you know?
Absolutely. So the main way we get it out is in the Oakmont Verona newsletter. Okay. We have a number that families call in that said they would like to request a donation. It's anonymous, and then people that give are able to help out, basically, possibly a neighbor, possibly a stranger, but it's a really great thing.
What do you do to raise funds throughout the year?
So throughout the year, really mainly almost now going into fall, we ask for kind of like a mass donation, which people are extremely generous and they do give. And then we get actually little bit through the year, we've had people through funerals list, in lieu of flowers, donate to Len Anderson Fund. We've gotten some support there. But all these charities need, just like the Memorial Day parade, they need funding. So it is important to give to causes that you think are.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't give to these things,
right,
traditions
they don't
go
exist.
away. Yeah. So we still want to go to the Memorial Day parade in Oakmont, even though we don't live in Oakmont.
Yeah. It's one of the better ones around.
It is.
It draws them in from miles around.
Yeah. I mean, I always say about light up night here is like 10,000 people. I think 30,000. Is that right? I think 30.
I think
like 30,000 people come to the boulevard. Wow. And like a lot of people didn't know this, but like, for many years, it was Russ Truby. Yeah. Meg Burkhart gave a ton. Mark Sorreo gives a ton. Yeah. And Danny Monaco gave a ton. It's like 5 people, men, women, that really like make this happen. If they don't do it, there's no light up night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of your dad's old employees was my uncle Vince Ferrani, and he had a saying about Oakmont. He said, "We're not the best. We just haven't found anybody better yet."
Yeah, I was impressed. I'm always impressed with the light up night, and just to put that into perspective for anybody that doesn't know Oakmont, there's like 10,000 people that live here.
Yeah,
and like 30 or 40,000 people show up for light up night.
Yeah, it's huge,
and it's for people all over the place. And I would say that the vast majority of them don't live here.
No, they don't.
Because I think a lot of people in Oakmont are like, it's just too many people.
Yeah. Well, you'll see companies that are on the Oakmont Chamber, because the only way to get a booth for like those events, like the street sale, the only way you have to be on the Chamber. Right. Yeah. So like there's a guy from Saxonburg selling kettle corn, working double shifts at light up night. And he's like, you'll look down the list and you're like, why is he on the chain? And then you're like, well, he probably makes $5,000.
Yeah.
Huge.
Favorite Rush tradition? If you had to pick one. Is it a certain meal? Is it certain place? What's something that you hold on to? I mean, we just talked about the parades and things. Those are obviously near and dear to his heart that he's carried forward.
One thing about him that like I didn't realize at the time, and we wrote in his obituary, he loved to like cook and and that's something.
What was he making?
So like that's something I do not have. Like again, my wife does that. Like on a Sunday, he would cook like Hungarian dishes, like Polish dish, like sausage type. Like him and his dad would like have the sausage thing that you would crank like in the sink, and then he would make like these big bowls, pots of soups, like massive during a Steeler game. So the game's on, he's in there like messing, and then he'll say, hey, I'm coming by, I'm bringing soup to like you and Shay's house, like all of our houses, which like, we live close. So he would drop it off, and it wasn't always good.
Did he like to entertain?
Dude, he was he liked a good party. He did. Yeah. And he did it at the funeral home. He had the perfect house for it. He loved to entertain, loved to have people over. He liked a good party too. He did.
Yeah. I can remember my gram going to like the new house on Virginia when he moved up there. And she's like 73 at the time, and Russ is probably 50 at the time. And her 90-year-old boyfriend, they're going to St. Patrick's Day parties at Russ's house, like hanging out. It's like, this kind of guy he was. It was just like, come one, come all.
Yeah. That's that.
Jerry, final thoughts.
I don't know. It's just the Truby name. You know, like I said, I grew up with Shay. Met you later because you actually were, I think you're a year. So you graduated in what, 05?
Yeah.
So you're you're a year older than my younger brother.
Right.
And I don't know the Truby name, but I knew your dad for forever. And I don't know anybody that's ever had a negative thing to say about any Truby. My wife is from Plum, and she's just now started hanging out with Shay because but it's fun to see my wife meet people that I've known my whole life.
Yeah.
And to see her reaction when she comes home and she's like, I met blah, blah, blah. And sometimes it's like, I met blah, blah, blah. She kind of seems like an ass. And I'm like, yeah, she is. She always has been. But then, you know, she met Shay and they kind of hit it off. And they're both Penn State grads, which I won't hold that against them. But so they hit it off. They're golfing now together and stuff like that. And it's cool. But, you know, she's always asked me, like, what's up with this person? What's up with that person? And the conversation about Shay was like, there's never been anybody that had a negative thing to say about any Truby. And you know, your dad's very missed, but I'm sure, like you said, you know, you don't know if you'll be able to live up to what your dad did. And I think that even the fact that you're concerned about that means that you will. And that Burket Truby Funeral Home will be around. We'll probably all be there at some point.
Flat.
You may not be running it.
Flat, like down. We'll be.
Yeah, we'll be laying there at some point.
I mean, because I'll probably be there like next week. It seems like.
Yeah, unfortunately, but I think you're doing great, and that's it.
Thank you. Good
Joey.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you were born the day before or day after my brother.
Is he the third?
Yeah, April 3rd.
Oh,
He's the
April
second, and you're the fourth.
I'm the fourth. Yeah.
Okay, so he was the third.
So
you're the fourth.
Our moms like bumped into each other on the elevator. That was little Billy, little Sean. Yeah, we always text each other on our birthday.
But I knew your dad both in a like professional manner when he dealt with my funerals, and I graduated with your sister just like these guys. But one of the things that I knew that we were probably going to go through the history of your dad a lot on this show. I kind of didn't know to what extent, but I'm glad we did, because it's a chance for you to like get it out there. Like you'll have this forever. I wish you the best of luck with your business. It's not easy being in business. I wish you the best of luck being a dad, because that's not easy. I mean, life's not really going to be easy. Life's not fair. You taking this time with us today was very important, because we're still working out the kinks. We're new to this, and you being here, and you're an affluential person in the community. No matter what you look at yourself in the mirror, you are. And I appreciate you coming and doing this with us, man. I really do. So thank you very, very much.
Yeah, kind of similar things, man. Just a lot of respect for everything you're sharing, and just I know this is a little overdue from you and I's perspective, but you had been, you know, that top 5 list of someone that we had wanted to talk to, just based on your dad's impact on the community and your family's impact on the community, and just the way you run business. You can't find, you know, we had touched on it before, you can't find people that don't go there. Yeah, those are bad people, and that reputation can be hard to kind of fulfill. You're filling big shoes, and I think us three, when we sat down a few weeks ago, were like, we need to talk to this guy. We need to hear what he has to say, and he deserves to stand on his own 2 feet. And just kind of blown away by your story, and just appreciate the time. I know you got kids at home, so it's a little late. I think you got me too, but I think you got 3 or 4 client calls, so you know it never stops, man. It's but appreciate the hustle for sure.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I think this is another step in a therapeutic year for me. We're both size 12 shoes, but his were definitely bigger.
It's a process, man.
Yeah.
You know, there's people at this table that those anniversaries and holidays, they change, but
It was July 4th, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, my birthday will never be the same.
I texted Jared this year because I put the sign in the yard, remember? I put the a yard sign like happy birthday, Dad. And I was like, I know it's your birthday. I won't do it again. But this is I gave him one more July 4th.
It was his birthday, too.
His birthday's the 5th.
The 5th.
He died on the 4th.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, they say a year full of firsts.
Right.
And I'm going on. This is actually the year that I've lived longer without my dad than with my dad.
That's crazy.
And it doesn't get any easier.
Yeah, that's what's crazy.
It gets easier to like put the face on when you're having the conversation. Yeah. Like I can talk more clearly about my dad now, but like there's still probably not a day that goes by that I'm not in my car driving and it just gets me. My grandmother was the same way. She pretty much raised me.
Yeah, she did.
And it's like a song will come on, something will happen. You know, you're just looking for that time that you just want to make that phone call and you're like, well, that sucks. Thought this was supposed to get easier. Yeah. We'll all be there someday, you know. Sucks.
Death and taxes, right, Jerry?
The only thing
Mostly
for sure.
Taxes.
And I do taxes, and
He
you
does
handle
taxes.
We've got good job security. We at least have that.
You know, I work a lot with funeral directors now. Like a lot of times I'm dealing with death. Like I'm hugging people at my front counter because their grandfather just died.
Yeah,
and they need a suit clean.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know, and I want to say no. I'm like, it's Friday and I want to go golfing, but I'm like, I'm hugging, I'm turning the boiler back on and cleaning his suit. I'm like, I'm getting $20.
That's the only time I ever call you. Joe, I got a funeral. All right, I'll pick up your suit.
We're going to change the dress code for this. Mandatory suits. We're all going to leave. And
That's why he asked. He's like, what should I wear? I said, be comfortable, man.
Yeah.
So, but I think that's a good point to sign off at. Thank you, Sean.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, brother.
Thank you for listening to Between Two Bridges, a business-to-business podcast. Find and follow us on your preferred podcast streaming platform. Like and subscribe, and leave us a rating and review. You can join us socially on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and X. You can email the show at info@betweentwobridgespodcast.com. Until next time, make it till you rake it.